by the morning sun. New day have just begun. All the happy song from your headphone. Bunny and fairy ale. The sun is shining so bright. Everything is alright.
Sofie's Storytime!
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Sofie, have you seen how many followers you have?
Yeah,
What should we tell them?
we have to tell them thank you for all the subscribers and the likes and the viewers.
Yes, thank you. So please subscribe to Sofie's Storytime. Sofie, what letter are we doing today?
Today we're doing the e-book.
E. And what sound does E make?
Eh.
And what story are we reading today?
Today we're reading Edward. Here's our e-word. Edward in the Jungle
Edward in the Jungle. And who's it by?
by David McPhail.
By David McPhail. So, Sofie, do you think this story is going to be real or imaginary?
We'll see.
All right, let's start reading.
Would you like to popcorn read?
I would love to popcorn read. Thank you for inviting me.
Edward loved to read. He especially loved to read adventure stories. His favorite stories were about Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle. Tarzan was raised by the great gray apes, and he grew up to become their leader.
Can you imagine being raised by apes? That'd be kind of cool, don't you think?
All of the animals loved him, except the crocodiles, and would come to his aid whenever he called.
Oh.
So here is Edward reading his book called Tarzan, and here's his imaginary.
The imaginary ape.
Yeah.
Okay, see what happens next.
And here's Tarzan, the little kid.
Oh yeah, that's Tarzan right there in the ape's arms. Edward had a set of animals just like the animals in Tarzan's jungle without the zebra. One day, Edward took his animals into the jungle behind his house.
He spread them out around him, then lay back on the cool moss and opened another Tarzan adventure.
Oh, so he's setting himself up outside to read a book.
He is spreading his toys all over. So here's his mommy working in the garden, and here's his daddy working the truck.
Yep. So let's see what happens next. Edward was so absorbed in his reading that he didn't notice what was happening. Do you know what that means, that he was so absorbed?
Absorbed means like you're very into it.
Exactly. He was so into what he was reading that everything around him just disappeared. So then what happens?
When he finally looked up, an enormous, there's another E-word, enormous crocodile
E-word, enormous.
was coming toward him.
So a crocodile was coming toward him. Oh my gosh.
Enormous means large.
It does. It means very big. So it was a very big crocodile.
Yes.
The crocodile lunged at Edward. But at that instant, Edward was snatched out of the way by none other than Tarzan himself. And a moment later, they were singing through the trees on a sturdy vine.
When they were a safe distance from the crocodile, Tarzan landed on the branch of a large tree and set Edward down. I'll teach you what to do if you need help and I am not around, said Tarzan. And he tipped back his head and yelled the loudest yell that Edward had ever heard. Ah! A booming call that echoed through every part of the jungle.
So that was his call, and all the animals knew it. Immediately, the branches around them filled up with all manner of birds, monkeys, snakes, and climbing cats. Okay, so far we know that Tarzan lives in a jungle with all the animals, and he communicates with them by making a loud noise that either lets them know there's danger or that they all need to come. Can you show me that noise again? Because you were perfect at it. What does he do? Yes, so whenever the animals hear that, they know that Tarzan needs them to come running. All right, Sofie, can you see what happens next?
On the ground, a huge elephant appeared and was soon joined by every other kind of animal that Edward had ever read about. Tarzan raised his hand and all the animals grew quiet. "This is our new friend," he announced. "Watch over him."
So Edward is now a new friend of the animals.
Yeah, so here's a giraffe, an elephant, an ox, a gorilla, a lion,
A rhino.
and an antelope.
And an antelope. So they have lots of cool friends in the jungle. Tarzan waved his arm and the animals disappeared as quickly as they had arrived. "I have to go pull a stuck hippo out of the mud," Tarzan told Edward. "Wait here." Then he grabbed a vine and swung away.
A stuck hippo in the mud?
Yeah, he had to go help a hippo that was stuck in the mud. So not only do the animals come to help Tarzan, but Tarzan actually helps the animals too when they're in danger. Let's see what happened.
Edward looked around. Crouched on the branch below him was a leopard, and standing on the ground beneath the leopard was a small antelope.
What does it look like the leopard wants to do to the antelope by the picture?
So normally a leopard will eat an antelope.
Yeah, because that's his prey, and the leopard's the predator. So can you see it in his eyes? He looks kind of hungry, huh?
He was like, "I want to eat you."
He does look like that. Okay, so what happens?
Edward leaned over and tried to warn the antelope without disturbing the big cat. So Edward is like, "Hey, there's a leopard. Watch out."
Yeah, so Edward was trying to help the antelope escape without being eaten. Psst, run for your life, he whispered. But he had leaned too far. He lost his grip and went tumbling out of the tree, past the wide-eyed leopard and plop, right onto the back of the antelope.
The antelope was so startled that it galloped away as fast as it could go, with Edward's arms wrapped tightly around its neck. It raced along the riverbank, leaping falling logs and charging through tangled thickets.
So Edward falls on the antelope, and the antelope is what? Is he
running?
Yeah, because he's like, what was that?
And he does not know what is tied around his neck.
Yeah, he's like, something's on me, oh my goodness. All right. Suddenly, the antelope stopped short and Edward went flying. He landed in the soft moss of the riverbank, in the exact same spot where he had first met the crocodile. So this is where, at the beginning of the story, he first was, isn't it? Remember, on the soft moss?
Yeah. The crocodile was still there, but he was completely tied up, and two men were loading him into their boat. "Serves him right," thought Edward. "That crocodile is no friend of mine."
So Edward's thinking, you know what? That crocodile was not very kind. He deserves to be tied up at first, right? But then Edward's heart softened As unfriendly as the crocodile was, he didn't deserve to be bound and dragged away from his river home. Edward stepped forward. "Let him go," he said to the men. When the men looked up and saw Edward, they laughed. "And what will you do if we don't?" said one of the men. "This is what I will do," said Edward, and he drew a deep breath and tried to yell just the way Tarzan had taught him.
But instead of a mighty yell, a squeaky noise came out of Edward's mouth. Ah!
So Edward tried again. This time, a powerful sound poured out of him and echoed through the jungle. The men stopped laughing, and from the silence that followed, new sounds emerged. The sounds of wings flapping and hooves pounding.
Immediately, the trees were filled with all kinds of creatures, and a circle of animals surrounded the two men.
So Edward's call worked just like Tarzan's, didn't it? Look, they all came, didn't they? To me, it looks like a lot more animals than the first one. What do we have? Now we have a snake and
A zebra.
a zebra,
Look at the lion.
the lion, and they all look like animals.
Rhino.
They all look like they're ready to rescue.
And look at Edward.
Look at Edward, yes, because he's yelling and they're all coming for him. "Now will you let the crocodile go?" Edward asked. The men dropped the crocodile. Splash! Jumped into their boat and sped off. Edward untied the rope that bound the great beast, and without a word of thanks, the crocodile slowly swam away. "You did a good thing," said Tarzan, as he swung down and landed beside Edward. So, did the crocodile get away? Who saved him?
Edward.
Edward! Thank you, Edward. Okay, let's see what happens after. Your turn, my dear.
While the two stood watching the crocodile, something caught Edward's eye. He saw the top of his house appear above the trees on the other side of the river. He could see his bedroom window with its jungle patterned curtains.
So he has jungle patterned curtains, so he must really like the jungle.
Here it is.
Oh, there they are. You can see them flying outside the window.
Edward looked up at Tarzan. "If I had a boat," Tarzan said, "I could take you home."
Just then, the crocodile turned around and started swimming back. "I think he wants to help," said Tarzan. Edward climbed onto the crocodile and sat down. The crocodile paddled off, and when they got to the opposite bank, Edward leaped ashore. He turned to say thank you, but the crocodile had sunk out of sight.
As he started up the path to his house, Edward thought he heard Tarzan's yell. Ah! But it was just his father, Edward, calling him home for dinner. Wow, what an adventure! So this is what is fun about books. So you can go to your backyard and have the most awesome adventure.
You can get lost in the story, can't you, if you really love it? You know what I also love about books is that you can learn something. So like, for instance, the crocodile. How did Edward feel about the crocodile at first?
He said like, oh, he's mean.
Yeah, he thought he was mean. And then he saw the crocodile get tied up. And at first he was like, that crocodile deserves it. But then what happened, Sophie?
Then his heart softened. And then he said, let him go.
So he wanted to help him after all. And did he? Yeah, so he helped the crocodile escape. And then what did the crocodile do for Edward?
He took him home.
Yes, he helped him get home. So to me, I love that I learned no matter what, be kind and nice to people, because then you get that back in return, huh? Yep. So then, as we talked about in the beginning, do you think the story is imaginary or real?
Imaginary.
Imaginary, which we call fiction. So fiction means that a story is not true, but sometimes those are the best stories to read because imaginations, do you have a good imagination? Yes, that's why I love children. They have the best imaginations. So what was the book called again?
Edward in the Jungle.
For what letter? And what letter is that? E. So Miss Sophie, what letter are you going to be reading to your followers next?
The F book that makes the sound f. Like
Yes.
fish
Fish.
and forecast.
Forecast. I like that one. Yeah. What about fragilistic?
Yeah, and French fries.
French fries. That's my favorite. All right. Sophie, you know what? I just have to say you are an amazing reader and she's only in kindergarten. So I am super proud of you. Should we say thank you for joining us?
So thank you for joining us. So see you next time. Bye bye. And Edward wants to say bye.
Oh.